My name is Emily Carter, and I live in a small blue house on Maple Street in Chicago, America. The porch sags a little, like it is smiling at the sidewalk. Inside, the living room holds a secondhand sofa, a fern that refuses to die, and a framed photo of the lake at sunset. My husband, Mark, says the house has good bones, which sounds like something a doctor would say, but he means the floors don't creak and the walls keep out the wind. We bought it last year for $278,000, and every month we send the bank our payment and feel a little more rooted. On the refrigerator door, a magnet shaped like the word America holds a list of simple dreams. Fix the fence, paint the porch, save $1,000 for a winter trip, maybe even cross the ocean to Europe one day when life is calmer. On a bright Sunday in June, we drove out to the suburbs for a family gathering at Mark's parents' place. Diane, my mother-in-law, loves to host. She set out bowls of strawberries and a plate of cheddar crackers that always vanish first. Robert, my father-in-law, was in a cheerful mood, tapping the cooler with his shoe and calling out, "Plenty of drinks. Help yourselves." My brother-in-law, Evan, turned the grill with a steady hand, and his wife, Lena, wandered around with a glossy smile that looked like it was painted on. Two of her friends from the city were there, Megan and Claire, both wearing sunglasses and laughing as if the air itself told jokes. I took a simple soda from the cooler and walked to the porch for a quiet minute. The yard was full of voices, kids whistling, men talking baseball, women comparing recipes, and the cost of groceries in dollars that seemed to stretch less each year. I set my plastic cup on the porch rail and looked toward the maple tree. The leaves flickered like small green coins. When I picked up the cup and sipped, the bubbles were sweet and sharp, but after two mouthfuls, the world shifted, just a little. It was as if someone had tilted the house and set the floor at a soft angle. My head felt warm. My vision fuzzed at the edges. It was not the hunger of an empty stomach. It was something else. Lena's laugh carried across the lawn. She leaned close to Megan and Claire, whispering, and then spoke louder, like a stage actor. "Emily can't hold a single drink," she said, and all three giggled. I wanted to smile and make it nothing, but my knees were not steady. Mark saw my face and came over in 3 long steps. He took the cup from my hand and sniffed it. His brows drew together. "This doesn't smell like soda," he said, soft and tense. A spark of fear opened in my chest. I sat down on the porch step and held the railing, the wood smooth from years of hands. "I'm fine," I tried to say, but my voice sounded like it belonged to someone farther away. Robert looked over, concerned. Diane reached for a water bottle. Evan turned the grill down. The lawn fell quiet, and I felt the weight of eyes. Behind them, I heard another laugh from Lena. Too bright for the hour. I thought of the list on my fridge at home, paint the porch, save $1,000, and how boring and safe it was. I liked boring and safe. I did not like this shaky lightness, this wrongness in my feet. Mark slipped an arm around my shoulders. "We're going to urgent care," he said, steady and sure. Diane handed me $40 just in case, because mothers always want to help in the fastest way money can. I stood, holding Mark's sleeve like a rope. As we walked to the car, I looked back at the porch. For 10 heartbeats, that porch did not look like a porch at all. It looked like a line I was about to draw across my life, between what I let pass with a nervous laugh and what I would stand up and name out loud. I did not know the cost yet in dollars or in trust, but I knew it would be paid. The urgent care clinic in Chicago smelled like lemon wipes and old coffee. Mark kept my hand steady as we checked in. The nurse asked simple questions, and I tried to answer in simple words. 2 sips, I said. A porch, a laugh, a tilt in my head. They took my blood pressure and shined a small light into my eyes. A doctor with calm shoulders told me I would be all right, but he wanted to run a quick test. I lay under a thin blanket that crackled like paper. The room hummed. Somewhere down the hall, a printer spit out bills and instructions that always end in pay by and a date. I thought about our blue house and the list on our fridge. When the results came back, the doctor spoke carefully. He said it looked like I had ingested something that should not be in a soft drink. He did not say the long name. He did not need to. The words were enough. He gave me water and told me to rest for 20 minutes before going home. On the way out, I stopped at the desk and paid $320 with my card. The clerk slid me a receipt like a narrow white flag. I tucked it into my bag and told myself this was not just a receipt. It was proof. It was a price tag on a moment someone tried to turn into a joke. We drove back to our house on Maple Street. The porch light was on, even though the sun still held the edges of the day. I sat on the sofa with the fern beside me, and Mark brewed ginger tea the way he always does when I look pale. The tea cost pennies, but it felt like gold. We talked in low voices. We named the thing out loud. He asked, "Do you think Lena touched your drink?" My first answer was a tired shrug, but then I saw her smile in my head, bright and hollow, and heard the way she raised her voice, so her friends could hear. "Yes," I said. The word was small and hard, like a coin pressed into a palm. Mark called his parents. Diane answered with worry already in her voice. Robert picked up the other line, and for a moment it sounded like we were all in one room again. Mark told them we needed to talk the next day. There was a quiet pause, and then Diane said, "Of course. Come by at noon. We'll set out coffee." After the call, I opened my bag and looked at the receipt again. $320 in bold. Under it, a second line with a smaller number for the test. I placed the paper on the coffee table like a card in a careful game. I was not planning revenge. I was planning clarity, the way you draw a map before you travel. That night, I slept light. In a dream, our porch was a dock, and the street was water. I kept my balance by naming things: house, cup, trust, cost, like steady posts along the edge. In the morning, the sky over Chicago was clear. I made toast, counted our cash envelope for groceries, $1.85 tucked in with a coupon, and told Mark I was ready. We drove to Diane and Robert's in the suburbs. Their house looked the same as yesterday, but the air felt different, like a room just before a meeting. Diane opened the door and pulled me into a soft hug. Robert took our coats and said, "Let's sit in the living room." We did not wait long. Evan came in from the yard. Then Lena walked in, on time and smiling, as if the day were any day. She sat across from me and crossed one leg over the other. Megan and Claire were not there. Robert folded his hands. Mark set the receipt on the table. I spoke first. My voice did not shake. I told them what the doctor said. I told them how the world tilted after 2 sips. I told them I heard the laugh. The room was quiet, the kind of quiet that asks you to keep going. So I did. I said, "This is the line. We do not touch each other's cups. We do not turn each other into shows." Lena's smile dropped. She started with, "It was just," and stopped. Diane's eyes were wet, but her voice was firm. "Lena, this is not a joke." Mark slid the receipt toward her like a small, honest mirror. "Someone has to pay this," he said, and then he added, "and not only in dollars." I looked at the photo of New York on the wall and thought of bridges, how they hold because someone measures and checks and refuses to guess. "We can fix this," I said. "But repair has a price." In America, we say that all the time about houses and cars. I was saying it now about a family. The living room in Diane and Robert's house felt like a courtroom that also served coffee. Their brick house sits on a quiet cul-de-sac outside Chicago, America, with neat hedges and a flag that snaps in the wind. We took our places. Robert in his firm armchair, Diane on the couch with a tissue, Mark beside me with the urgent care receipt folded like a verdict, Evan at the edge of a dining chair he dragged in from the kitchen, and Lena across from me, legs crossed, eyes bright as if brightness could make the past blur. On the wall, a framed poster of New York showed tall bridges and clean lines. I thought about the strength of bridges and how they don't work by accident. They work because someone insists on rules. Robert cleared his throat. "We're going to handle this like a family," he said, and the word family landed like a promise with a price tag. Diane nodded. "Emily," she added gently, "start from the beginning." I did, using the plain words I had practiced in our blue house on Maple Street. 2 sips, a tilt, a laugh, a nurse, a test, $320. When I finished, the room held still. Lena opened her mouth and tried the same sentence she had started yesterday, It was just, but Diane lifted a hand and Lena stopped. It was the smallest movement I had ever seen carry that much weight. Mark unfolded the receipt and set it on the coffee table, then placed a note beside it. He had written 3 rules in careful block letters. 1. No one touches another person's drink, ever. 2. Anyone who jokes about drugging, spiking, or loosening up is asked to leave immediately. 3. If trust is broken, repair begins with paying the costs, medical, emotional, and time. This isn't punishment, Mark said. It's maintenance. Houses and families both need it. I could feel our little blue house inside those words, solid and patient. Robert turned to Lena. Did you put anything in Emily's cup? Silence stretched long enough for the refrigerator to hum and stop. Evan watched his wife with eyes that looked older than last week. Finally, Lena said, I wanted to see her wobble. It was supposed to be funny. Diane's tissue crumpled. People aren't props, she said, each syllable crisp as a snapped twig. This is America. We talk about freedom, but freedom without care is just noise. Evan reached for Lena's hand, missed, and folded his own instead. You'll make this right, he told her, and his voice had the steadiness of a ledger. First, reimburse Emily for the clinic, $3.20, and the follow-up visit if there is one. Second, say the words, not sideways. He looked at me. You deserve a direct apology, not a performance. Robert added his own line items, practical as a hardware store list. At the next 3 gatherings, all drinks labeled with names. Lena to arrive early and help set up and clean. No alcohol until winter. If anyone breaks the rules, they sit out the next event. Diane offered to put £200, she corrected herself to $250, toward counseling if Lena would go, because repair sometimes needs a guide. The mix-up made us all smile for half a second, and then the seriousness returned. Lena's eyes flicked to me, then to Mark, then down. I don't have the money, she murmured. Evan exhaled. Then we pause the Europe savings, he said. We fix home before we cross oceans. The word Europe drifted through the room like a postcard we'd put back in the drawer. Mark slid a pen across the coffee table. We'll draft an agreement so no one argues later, he said. I'll keep the receipt in our house file. I pictured the file cabinet in our dining room, the one we bought for $69 on sale, and felt an odd relief. This would live on paper, not just in my chest. Diane moved to sit beside me. Emily, she said, what do you need to feel safe to come back? The question loosened a knot in my throat. Clear cups with names, I answered. A rule that anyone who laughs at harm leaves, even if they're family. And I want the $320 returned, because that bill should teach, not punish. My voice stayed level. I was surprised by its strength. Robert nodded, wrote the items into Mark's note, and signed his name first, like the cornerstone of a new porch. Lena stood, shoulders rounded. She faced me without the bright shield of a smile. I'm sorry, Emily, she said, not dramatic, just square. I turned you into a joke. I'll pay the $320. I'll do the rules. I'll go to the sessions. The apology did not erase the tilt on that porch or the way the laughter felt, but it gave me footing. I thought of the bridges again, how they hold because steel meets math and promise meets bolt. When we left the house, the cul-de-sac was quiet. Mark unlocked the car, and I looked back at the windows, warm with lamplight. This was not revenge. This was a blueprint. In Chicago, in America, in our blue house and theirs, a plan had been drawn with ink, dollars, and names. The cost of repair had numbers, but the worth of it was heavier than cash. I put my hand on the dashboard and breathed. We had not fixed everything, but the house of this family had added a beam, and I could feel it hold. In the weeks after that meeting, our blue house in Chicago, America, felt like a quiet workshop. Mark fixed a loose hinge on the back door and oiled the porch steps so they would not creak. I tidied the file cabinet in the dining room and slid the clinic receipt behind a clear sleeve, next to our mortgage note and the $69 invoice for the cabinet itself. It felt good to place the paper where it belonged, like setting a picture straight on a wall. Each evening we walked by the lake, saying little. I watered the fern and wrote a new list for the fridge. Paint the porch, save $1,000, take a weekend train to New York when we can, and farther down, someday Europe. Not as escape, but as reward after repair. 3 days later, a message came from Lena. It was short. She said she was sorry for turning me into a show, and that she understood if I did not want to see her for a while. She sent a photo of a crumpled money order for $500, $320 for urgent care, and $180 for the follow-up I had scheduled with my doctor. She also attached a note from a counselor on the north side. 3 sessions paid. The first 2 covered by Diane's $250 gift, the third by $80 of Lena's own cash, and the rest with a small card charge. I read the note twice. It was not poetry. It did not try to make pain pretty. It said she was learning that jokes can be knives, and that trust has a price. I put my phone down and let out a long breath I had been holding since June. Thanksgiving came fast. Diane and Robert invited us to Boston, and the flight was cheap enough that Mark and I used miles and only $62 each in fees. Their brick house on a quiet street felt warm from the door. In the kitchen, Diane had labeled clear cups with a thick marker. Emily, Mark, Robert, Diane, Evan, Lena. The names looked bold and plain, like road signs. Lena arrived early, hair pulled back, sleeves rolled up. She set out plates, counted forks, and asked me, simply, "Where do you want the water pitchers?" The room did not tilt. I said, "By the window, please," and she moved them there without a single extra word. Later, Evan bumped my shoulder with a gentle grin and said, "Home first, then Europe," and I smiled because it sounded like a right-sized dream with a clear price. We ate turkey and talked about small things. The cost of groceries in dollars that feel thinner, the wind off Lake Michigan, the new transit line near Robert's office, the city lights in New York at Christmas. When the pie came out, Robert told a story about his first job for $6 an hour and the winter he saved $120 to fix a broken radiator. Money in those stories felt honest, not heavy. After dinner, Mark and I washed dishes while Lena dried and stacked them. She did not perform. She just worked. When we were done, she looked at me and said, "Thank you for coming." I heard the words land in the right place, simple and square. Back in Chicago, the blue house seemed to breathe easier. I taped a new card to the inside of the cupboard where we keep the tea. My voice is worth more than quiet. It costs nothing and also everything. On a calm Sunday, Mark and I painted the porch rails for $42 in supplies, and the white lines gleamed against the sky. I stood at the top step and thought about bridges again, New York steel, Boston stone, and about the small, steady boards under my feet. This is not a revenge tale. It is a budget for the heart and a plan for a house. I know the price of trust now in dollars and in days, and I know how to pay it. My name is Emily Carter, and this is my voice in America, in my own home, held up by work, by rules, and by love that keeps its receipts.